Pray for the bear. And Dillon Brooks pokes the proverbial bear, talking smack to Jimmy Butler. Butler heard it. So much for pain. 39 minutes he plays, leads the way with 27. Huge game from Pods, a defensive masterclass from Draymond Green, and it got a little chippy at times, but we're able to see a Warriors win. It's 3-1 in the series. We're breaking down all things Dubs. One more.
You are Locked On Warriors.
Stop trying to turn the page on us so fast.
Your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
We got 4 championships.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Every team has a chance if Steph's on the team.
Your team every day.
Yo, what's the good word, everyone? Welcome to the Locked On Warriors. This show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is FanDuel. We have a free daily newsletter. You can find it at LockedOnDaily.com. You can find the show on YouTube. Get us to 17,000 loyal Golden State Warriors fans. Hit that subscribe button. It is free. Hit that like. And if you like the live shows, definitely hit that notification so you know when we go live. Also, take us on the go. Listen to us while you're doing the bench press, in the gym, in bed, whatever it may be. You can find us wherever you get your audio podcast. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. Also covered the team for CBS News Bay Area. Cron 4's Kylan Mills back in the day. She also worked for NBC Sports Bay Area. You've seen her on the Big Ten Network. You've seen her on the CW, on ION, on ESPN. She's all over the place. I, meanwhile, sit in the basement. She is upstairs right now. Kylan, what a win from Golden State, 109-106. We have so much to get into. Playoff Jimmy's back. Third quarter trio. I want to talk about this. Playoff Pods comes out to play. Draymond Green, when he was on the floor, because that's a side topic with some of the altercations in the game, he was brilliant defensively, and it was Green who shuts down Şengün down the stretch, but credit to Şengün. But we're not starting the show with a credit to a Rockets player. We are starting the show with how this game ended. Not like it started, because Jimmy Butler didn't have a great first half, just 6 points. Second half, he was brilliant. 14 points in the fourth quarter from Jimmy Butler, who we didn't even know before today if he was going to play. Was trending towards returning to the lineup, but we had no idea. We learned before the game that he would not be on a minutes restriction, so it's all right. How does Jimmy feel? I heard Reggie Miller at one point, like a minute into the game, say that, oh no, Jimmy's wincing after a play. And I thought maybe, he's just going to get 20, 25 minutes. They're going to ride this hot start that the Warriors got off to, and that's going to be that. They needed every single second of Jimmy Butler, including 3 massive free throws with 57 seconds to go in the game after Dillon Brooks fouled him. How ironic that Dillon Brooks, who was getting in Jimmy Butler's face, who caused a technical in the game, depending on which glasses you saw it through, how ironic that it's Jimmy Butler sinking what was the game-deciding free throws. And even more ironic, it's Draymond Green, who we thought was going to be ejected based off some of the replays. Instead, they don't call it a technical. They call it a flagrant 1. He's able to stay in the game, albeit not playing much of it. And it's the final play. ISO, Şengün. He'd been the best player on the floor for the Rockets. And Draymond Green wins that battle. And guess who grabbed the rebound? It's Jimmy Butler.
What a finish to this game, Chuck. If you're not ready to run through a brick wall after the way the Dubs closed it out, I mean, I am fired up. Dubs up 3-1 in the series. I think this was a fantastic game. It's been a great series, in my opinion. This has been competitive basketball. The officiating has left a little bit to be imagined, or at least a lot to be imagined in terms of making some more correct calls. I don't want to divulge too deep into that. But outside of that, this has been fun to watch. And it came down to the final play. That's it. This is 2 really competitive basketball teams. It comes down to the Warriors need to get one last stop, and that's where Draymond Green, despite having 5 fouls, being on the verge of fouling out, and that was the big reason why, to me, the Rockets were even in this late, is because Draymond Green had to leave the game with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and the Dubs were struggling to protect the paint without him. I mean, that was a big-time issue to me, and I still think that's an issue going forward for the Dubs to close out the series. But Draymond Green, still an elite defender, a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, and he showed why, because Şengün was virtually unstoppable against this Dubs team tonight. Definitely was unstoppable without Draymond Green in the game. And 1v1, mano-a-mano, Draymond goes straight up against him, hand up, in his face, and wins the 1v1 battle. The shot doesn't go in, and that's all it came down to, in addition to Jimmy Butler getting the board, which I don't know how Jimmy got that rebound, by the way. That was incredibly tough. Rockets players all around him. It was a scrum under the basket, and somehow Jimmy rose up, from the rafters, all of a sudden flies up and comes down with a rebound. That was just incredible to watch. I love the fact that, to me, Dillon Brooks got what he asked for in terms of igniting a new level of Jimmy Butler, playoff Himmy, if you will, with that trash talk that we saw during a couple free throws early in the game. I want to bring up that in the post-game interview on TNT, Allie LaForce asked Jimmy Butler what his motivation was to play 40 minutes, drop 27 points, coming off of an injury where it wasn't clear what he'd be able to contribute. Also, his efficiency was ridiculous. 7 of 12, 1 of 2 from the three-point line, 12 of 12 from the charity stripe, 5 boards, 6 assists, 1 block. The motivation for all of that, he said, was some words that someone said early in the game. And Allie was like, you don't want to expand upon that? And he's like, I think everyone saw what was said. We all know it. It was Dillon Brooks talking trash. And if you mess with a bull, you're going to get the horns. And that's exactly what he got. Jimmy Butler was on fire throughout this game. To me, he was the difference maker when Steph Curry was struggling. And this is a Rockets team that has done a good job, I think, overall in the course of not just this game, but in the season. You go back to the 3-point performance in shutting Steph down. But then Jimmy gets going. And as Jimmy gets going, he starts to draw more defensive attention. And what happens? He's able to distribute. And in this game, what made the difference also was the guys around him stepping up. Brandon Podziemski, 26 points. As much as there's been plenty of criticism for Buddy Hield hit some really timely shots and some big threes, especially the second half. He brought up the third quarter streak. He was crucial in that. I think he hit a couple big shots in the fourth. Finishes with 15 points, plus 17 for Buddy Hield. 4 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals. He had one early in the game where I was like, okay, you go, Buddy Hield. Not especially efficient from 3 of 9, but at the end of the day, I thought he had some key contributions. So, you know what? I think, he deserves his flowers as a player who's gotten criticism that he's deserved. He stepped up big tonight. And then again, I just think it's a matter of the others. Corey had 17, which is, I thought Quentin Post had some key baskets, especially in the first half. He finishes with 13. But you know what? To me, it was Jimmy Butler that really was the heart and soul of this win alongside Draymond Green.
We went a little long there to not mention the name Brandon Podziemski, who knocks down 6
I said
threes.
Brandon. I said Brandon.
You mentioned the name? Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I mentioned the name because I was saying that. So here's the thing. Steph is drawing a ton of defensive attention. So then the Warriors get the ball out to Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's doing what he does, hitting the mid-range, creating chaos. Jimmy starts drawing defensive attention, multiple defenders, whatever. So you need to get other guys involved, and others have to start hitting shots.
And it was Peyton the last game, right? It was Peyton off the kind of the
Brandon
same mindset
Buddy Hield,
Curry.
I think, the 2 most important pieces that were hitting shots once, and especially after Jimmy got going.
Okay, a couple of things I like that you said there that I wanted to respond to. One, Jimmy Butler, the words that he said back to Dillon Brooks when Brooks was talking some trash, picked up right where Klay Thompson left off. He called him a bum. Dillon Brooks continues to get called a bum by endless Warriors players. And as of right now,
doesn't matter what team he's on. I love the Dillon Brooks Warriors beef. It's hysterical.
Yeah, it's an easy word to pick up, right? A bum. You're not calling him anything else when you see the lip reading there. I thought this game down the stretch was interesting with some of the chess matches that Steve Kerr was rolling out there. I mean, he went to Trace Jackson Davis for a minute. I mean, that's a shakeup. That's like,
that was interesting.
He said during one of the timeouts, like, we got to go to the chessboard, and I'm thinking, that's not the chessboard, Steve. Like, you just pulled a battleship out and put it on the board. And Ime Udoka's like, what the hell is this? Wrong game, man. He put Fred from Guess Who on the chessboard. And it's like, wrong game. Like, I don't understand Trace Jackson Davis, who we haven't seen play meaningful minutes in how long? Feels like months. He's going to throw him out there at that point. But that's what happens when Draymond Green is not available. And anyone
I would say Draymond's foul trouble is the big reason.
And anyone's a better option than Kuminga, because I didn't even see him at the game. I don't know about you. I didn't see him on the bench, on the bike,
I don't
anything.
think I ever showed a shot of Kuminga.
I don't know.
The Rockets were playing that double big lineup, and they were getting into the paint way too easily. And like, this is where I think there is legitimate concern for the Warriors in terms of their front court depth, because if it's not Draymond Green, like who's protecting the paint? Quentin Post had some moments. Like I said, I just still feel like he needs to get a little bit tougher. But aside from that, like I guess Kevon Looney would be the alternative option. So it's either Looney or it's Trace Jackson Davis. I thought it was interesting that Steve Kerr went with Trace. But it was the double bigs, and it was the Warriors struggling to defend the paint to me that let's try Trace Jackson Davis, which like I'm not opposed to. I will say I didn't think he was super productive. I was not especially impressed by TJD. I don't know what you thought. But it definitely was a chess match. I mean, the Rockets were throwing a zone out there at times, daring the Warriors to hit some threes. And luckily they got some actually when they were running zone. They had some key threes, even though the Warriors didn't hit they weren't especially hot from beyond the arc. Let me look what they finished with. 37% from beyond the arc. So good. But they were mixing it up. It was a chess match for sure. Both coaches were mixing it up. It made it really fun to watch. Once again, though, Houston's just dominant in the paint, 48-28 in terms of points in the paint. Again, that's the one area that I'm like, the Warriors got to defend the paint, because if the Warriors don't hit the three and they can't score in the paint, then you got some issues. But 17
out of that, you could attest to Draymond being out there, right? Because Şengün was cooking them alive.
I think with Draymond, you're in a good spot. But without Draymond, you've got Kevon Looney and Trace Jackson Davis, and I guess Quentin Post. But you don't feel great about any of those three. And I think that's why Alperen Şengün was able to walk all over the Warriors for a good portion of this game.
And Şengün's really good. He had 31 to lead the way for Houston. Finally, a big game for Fred VanVleet, who goes 8 of 12 from 3, 25 points. Yeah, he was good. Thompson had his moments with 17. Brooks had 11. That's just what Brooks does. It feels like he scores 11 every single game. Jalen Green, he wasn't even on the floor in crunch time, it felt like. He just had 8 points. Jabari Smith, 6. Tari Eason, 3. And then Steven Adams had 5, but had 4 blocks on the weak side. He defensively can change the game, and his rebounding. I mean, he's just a huge man that's still playing at a pretty high level for someone that it felt like he was running around with Kendrick Perkins, who's been out of the league for like 9 years, chilling on the desk. So anyways, we're going to get into the third quarter that the Warriors had a trio of players. In fact, a trio of members from the Batcave combined for 21 of their first points in that quarter during a 21-1 run, I believe it was. We're going to get into that coming up on Locked On Dubs.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
First of all, let's tell you about America's #1 sports book. There was a spread in this game. There's always a spread in an NBA game, and it was the Houston Rockets getting 3.5. So the Hook, it's Captain Hook, who saves Rockets bettors and who makes Golden State bettors not very happy in this one. However, if you got the Warriors on the -165 money line, then you are victorious. FanDuel, the NBA playoffs are here. FanDuel's giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bets if the bet wins. I love how easy FanDuel makes it betting. It's like picking your favorite team. It's just picking a player prop, whatever. 3-pointers, assists, steals, whatever. You can bet on any player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can combine live prop bets into same-game parlays for a chance to win big. So do not miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
This was a game of runs, Kylan. And not only was it a game of runs, it was a game of almost extremely intense moments that got out of hand. But it was okay. No ejections, no punches thrown, maybe a few pushes, and maybe a few hooks here and there during the game. Not a few, many hooks here and there during the game that may leave some bruises on some of these players. Let's start with the game of runs, because it was the Warriors who got out to a 13-2 lead in the game. You could notice Draymond's defense from the first possession of the game. Like every ball screen, it felt like Draymond was hedging hard. And I think it was Jalen Green a few times. It was, quite frankly, every single Rockets player. VanVleet had one where he turned it over and just hedging the ball screens, blitzing. And Draymond was either taking it away, he was either forcing a bad pass, he was either getting in the passing lane, or the Rockets player would lose it coming around the screen once he saw Draymond's long arms there. And a lot of the times the beneficiary was Buddy Hield. I mean, they must have showed him going nuts with the crowd like 3 times in the first 4 minutes of the game. That's an interesting dynamic that we now finally see. Buddy Hield back in the starting lineup. I mean, that's Steve Kerr tinkering with this thing all the way until the playoffs. Buddy Hield is back in the good graces of Warriors fans as the experience goes from down here to all the way up here that quickly. Fascinating player. But when you get good Buddy, especially in a playoff setting, he's a fun player to root for, and he is a fan favorite out there. And when Buddy's rolling, the vibes are high. You could tell early.
Yeah, absolutely. He hit a couple threes and the crowd just went wild. Like I said, especially one that sticks out to me was during that third quarter run where the Warriors were jumped out 18-3 or something to start off the third quarter. And Jimmy hit some big shots. Jimmy did hit some big shots, but he hit some big shots. I do think, Chuck, I do think a lot of the series came down to the others and comes down to the others because, like I said, I just think the Rockets have done a good job defending Steph Curry. And in general, teams are going to throw the kitchen sink at Steph Curry, especially when we're talking about playoff series. You know, that's where the Warriors are trying to get the ball. And it's going to come down to the players around him stepping up, being able to hit shots in addition to the team being able to defend. I thought the Warriors did a good job defensively. Like I said, I think the paint is an issue. It's certainly an area of concern when Draymond Green isn't on the floor, but I thought overall the team defended well. They forced 17 turnovers. Not a bad thing. And then it's a matter of the others stepping up. And I thought Buddy Hield getting the start was an interesting choice, and it proved to be a good choice because he played well last game. So why not continue to ride the hot hand? I think there were two consecutive positive performances for Buddy Hield. So why not keep it rolling? I think a lot of this Warriors rotation with the different talent they have, especially in the backcourt, you can tinker a little bit depending on who's playing well, so sometimes, like you said, it's GP2 maybe tonight, not as much GP2, 16 minutes, not a lot of Moses Moody.
Pods and Buddy tonight. Yeah.
But hey, if Pods and Buddy are the ones who are playing well, keep rolling with it. So I do think Steve Kerr deserves some credit because I know at times I struggle with the rotations that he's thrown out there. Like, what is going on? I said that during the Game 2 loss in that second quarter rotation where it was Gee and I don't even know who else was on the floor. Gee and Pat Spencer and a random bunch. But I think the Warriors got it right tonight. I think Steve Kerr got it right tonight in terms of the coaching, and this is huge. 3-1. This is the Warriors series to lose at this point.
Yeah, and it was a physical game as always when you're playing the Rockets. There were a couple of moments that almost got out of hand, specifically the first one. I thought Quentin Post was going to potentially throw hands in there. I mean, Quentin Post is a tough guy. Yeah. Quentin Post is always ready for the smoke. But Curry got a technical on the first one, which I thought was an absolute joke because there's no technical unless Dillon Brooks doesn't act like a 7-year-old, or there only is a technical if Dillon Brooks acts like a 7-year-old and slaps the ball out of Curry's hands, because realistically, Curry was just giving him, a couple of these. That's 2 thus far, shooter. You got 2 fouls, Brooks. And whatever, that's a nothing burger. It's not a technical for taunting. The refs wouldn't have called it. Dillon Brooks decides to act like a jackass, and they call it. Technical on Curry, he couldn't believe it. And a scuffle ensues. Nothing comes from it. Then, a few moments later, Tari Eason and Draymond, I thought it almost led to a Draymond suspension and an ejection. They got tied up. Draymond's leg was naturally on Tari Eason's shoulder. There may have been a kick in there. There was a jersey grab in there at some point. They got tangled up. You could see Draymond saying, "We're not doing this right now, Tari." They stood up, whatever. Draymond gets a flagrant 1, no technical. So he gets to stay in the game, albeit with, at that point, I think it was 3 or 4 fouls early in the game. But after that flagrant, the second scuffle, Rockets go on immediate 7-0 run. They finish the first half up 57-50, and that is where the third quarter comes into play, and that is where we return to talk after this. The Batcave. It's Buddy Hield, it's Jimmy Butler, and it's Steph Curry assisting, scoring, or affecting 21 straight points by the Golden State Warriors. The third quarter is where the Dubs won this game, and it is where we finish this show discussing that quarter coming up on Locked On Warriors.
Destroy Jimmy and Domino's. I know Jimmy drinks great wine.
Forget that. We champs. Why you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
All right, so that third quarter, there was an immediate 18-1 run to start the second half. And we mentioned on our last show that Buddy Hield is now, I mean, this entire Warriors team is trolling us with the whole Batman references. You know, the Batman, the Robin, now Buddy Hield saying he's Alfred. This team's having fun. Those three specifically seem to really enjoy each other's company. And I think that's part of the reason why Kerr may be rolling with Buddy Hield in this situation is he's getting the green light from Curry and Jimmy. Jimmy says, Steve, I told him not to dribble anymore, although Buddy did have a lot of moments today where he tried to create and dribble maybe a little too much. But I think those three are really connected right now, and it showed in the third quarter. The easiest way to do it is just to run right down the play-by-play sheet because they combined for 21 straight. It was Buddy making a driving layup. It was Butler, a little jump shot off a Buddy Hield assist. Then it was Curry, an 18-foot pull-up. It was Butler knocking down a couple of free throws. It was Buddy Hield with a layup off a Jimmy Butler assist where Butler carved into the lane and got into the air and then found Butler for an easy one. Then after that, it was a Podziemski three-pointer, but Butler assisted on the play, so the streak is still alive. Thompson hit a free throw to give the Rockets their 1 point in this large run. Then Curry hits a jump shot. Then Buddy Hield hits a 26-foot three-point shot. Then Buddy Hield makes a 25-foot three-point jumper. From 12 minutes to 5:35, every single Warriors basket had to do with a member of the Batcave. I love it, Kylan. I love that.
So we're just making everything a Batcave reference now. I love that as well. No, I think all three of those guys were clicking, and I do think that Steph has a ton of influence in terms of who is trusted in this lineup and who's trusted with the basketball. I mean, look at what happened to Jonathan Kuminga, right? I mean, you were telling me more than even I knew about the reference in terms of Steph Curry not wanting JK on the floor in certain situations, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. Steph has a ton of pull in this organization.
It was the Nuggets game. It was reported that Curry said Santos go in, not Kuminga. So
I'm just saying, maybe there's something more to the story there. Because like you said, I think if you're in Steph's good graces, things are clicking. Like I said, I watched the post-game interview before he got ready to come on just because I wanted to see the reaction. And Buddy Hield was jumping all over Jimmy Butler, and those two guys were chopping it up, and it was just a joy to see. And something that Jimmy also said during post-game was, he said, I found my love of the game again. I think there were a lot of similarities you could make to Klay Thompson and how, honestly, he was pretty miserable his last couple of years in the Bay. He never was the same player after coming back from injury. His role wasn't quite the same, and there just was something missing. We heard all of the reports and the rumors about the relationship going south between Klay Thompson and the Warriors front office, and there are some, like I said, some comparisons I think you can make to Jimmy Butler in Miami, where he just needed a change of scenery. And you see that time and time again with players, not just those two, where sometimes it just takes a change of pace to provide that spark. And that's exactly what the Warriors and this environment has done for Jimmy Butler. We know what Himmy can do in the playoffs, and I think playoff Jimmy is here and hopefully here to stay, which is incredible to watch. I have to say, Chuck, I did not expect Jimmy to fit in this well with the Dubs. Play style wise, because he is a very different style of player. And now that I see it in full action, I think it's great because he complements some of the Warriors' other pieces and what they do. But I think coming in, I was questioning, what would this look like? Again, this is a player who's dealt with injuries. This is a player who, you saw what he did in Miami. Maybe there's questions about the locker room presence. This is a guy who's older. But I think he's checked all of the boxes so far. And you've got to give the Dubs organization credit for making that trade and making the move and finding a piece and figuring out how it would fit. And they got it right. I mean, in this situation, they got it right. And we've been fair in calling out a lot of times where they got it wrong. There absolutely have been times. I mean, look at Dennis Schroeder. The Dubs got it wrong. It wasn't a good fit.
It was fine.
That it wasn't
because it was fine. They turned Lindy Waters into Schroeder, who turned into a piece in the
I
Jimmy
disagree
Butler
with
deal,
you. I
so
don't think it was a good fit. I don't think it was a good fit.
No, it wasn't a good fit, but I'm saying the trade ended up working out.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying initially bringing Dennis Schroeder in, it wasn't a good fit. To me, he's a player who needs to be working in the pick and roll. That's not the bread and butter of the Warriors offense. I don't think that this was a great place for him to be able to utilize his skill set, and you move on. But with Jimmy Butler, I think the Warriors got it right. They needed something that was missing, and Jimmy's brought that. Jimmy needed a change of scenery. He's still a high-level basketball player. You just watch what he can do against a number 2 seed in the West, and I think winning the West is very, very realistic for the Stubbs team with the way they're playing right now.
Sandy
I think
Pandy's.
What?
Go ahead.
Oh, Sandy Pandy. Jimmy fits because he's a winner. He is, and he's a winner. He's a winner. No, I totally agree with it. But I think it's been really cool to see the culture fit. Jimmy appears to be getting along great with his teammates. Like you said, I think the bond is there off the floor, and that's led to the joy that you see on the floor. And you look at the way this team is willing to share the basketball. That tells the story to me as well. 27 assists on 36 made field goals, I believe it was. Let me double check that on the box score. But that was something that I was looking at, and I was like, that's awesome. 27 on 36. That's right. And I thought especially the Warriors came out hot, and during that third quarter, the ball was bouncing around like a hot potato. It was a late, really great ball movement to watch. No one's selfish. I don't know. I think it's been really cool. I think the chemistry has been totally on point with Jimmy Butler. Would you say the same?
Yeah. I mean, the Heat got swept today. They lost by 55. So their season is over. Meanwhile, the Warriors continue to go. All the Warriors gave up was a protected first-round pick, a bunch of players that were not a part of the future, with all due respect to Kyle Anderson, Lindy Waters, Dennis Schroeder. Andrew Wiggins was great, don't get me wrong. And if there was somehow a way to, make financials work that Kuminga could have gone, Steve Kerr would have vouched for that 1,000%, but that's not the way that it worked out. You had to give up Wiggins, and it was a tough situation at the time because Wiggins is an NBA champion and was one of the best players on a team that won an NBA championship, but it's worked out perfectly. Be honest with yourself, audience listening or watching. 90% of you thought like this is probably over, right? They may not make another run. They may series with Steph Curry. There's the talks of do we get out the TNT? There's the talks of Steve Kerr after one of the games saying I'm not having any fun right now, and Curry saying we're mid. And this entire thing just changed with Jimmy Butler on the floor. I wasn't even that excited for the trade. I was like, really? We're going to bring in more dinosaurs to this team? And, someone that hasn't played a ton this season due to not only injury, but also, attitude issues. And whatever the attitude issues are that happened in Miami, that's Jimmy being Jimmy. This guy's a joy to watch, plays the game the right way, gets his teammates involved. He's so unselfish, almost to a fault at some points. And when the moment rises, he plays his best game. We will always remember this as, I thought it was going to be game 3, but he was out. We'll always remember this as the butt game. With a sore butt, Jimmy Butler goes out there, scores 14 in the fourth quarter. Down the stretch, he did everything. He had a bucket with 5:36. Then he had a layup with 3:58. Then he had a driving layup with 2 minutes to go. Then he had 3 free throws that decided the game when it was tied at 104. Baited Dylan Brooks into a foul, and that was your game-deciding points as the Warriors win it 109-106. What a W, Kylan. 3-1, going back to Houston. And you got Houston's best shot tonight. They put up 106 on you. This is a team that has not been able to score over 100 on you. They do. And they get 31 from Şengün. They get 25 from Fred VanVleet, who goes 8 of 12 from 3. They shoot at 49% from the floor, 47% from 3. But what killed them in the game was 19 of 31 from the charity stripe. That is 61%. That is not going to get the job done. And that's just kind of who Houston is. We wondered who they would get the ball to in the final moments, because that was a question heading into the series. Who's their closer? Is it Jalen Green? I don't even know if Jalen Green was in the game. I think he was on the bench in that final stanza. And they decide that Şengün's the best option. Have any tip-ins? I'm stopping Şengün. It was a decent look. It was a pretty good shot, but he missed it at the end of the day. And Draymond Green, like many times, gets credited for that stop at the end that allows the Warriors to win and go up 3-1 in the series. Give me any final thoughts for the road, Kylan.
My final thoughts are that, I still think that the Rockets' size is an area of concern and their ability to get in the paint in the moments that Draymond Green isn't on the floor. I think the non-Dre minutes were the biggest concern tonight, just because something we haven't touched on is not just Şengün, but I also thought Steven Adams was a problem inside. He ended up racking up a couple fouls, I feel like, and came out, but he had 4 blocks, I think it was, in this game, and 7 or 8 boards. So again, it's just the fact that they can go with this 2 big lineup, this Houston Rockets team can. And you've got Şengün, who's an elite scorer, the double-double with 31-10. And then I thought Steven Adams' paint protection also was big. And that's an area that the Warriors are lacking clearly. But they've been able to overcome it so far. I think you got to just keep things rolling. Don't turn the ball over stupidly, because that's the thing. I look back to, okay, well, how do they lose game 2? Don't turn the ball over. Stay locked in defensively for stretches. If the Dubs struggle a lot from beyond the arc, I do think they run into some problems there as well. They need the others to continue to step up. Like if Steph Curry is getting bottled up with a million defenders, there's going to be space somewhere else and someone has to hit shots. We got that tonight, and I think that has to continue. Maybe it's not Brandon Podziemski next game. Maybe it's not Buddy Hield. Maybe it's someone else. But I think the Warriors' depth is going to be super important to close out the series. I think that the Dubs got it, though. I really do.
How nice would it be?
I mean, I think everyone does at this point, right? Like 3-1.
How nice would it be to end Ime Udoka and Dylan Brooks and Tari Eason and Fred to end their season and have fun in Cancun, pack those bags, fellas, in their home gymnasium. Oh, it'd be beautiful. It'd be beautiful. To the Locked On Rockets. Actually, Jackson Gatlin, who hosts the Locked On Rockets show, after wins, he sends the hounds our way, and they all comment on our show. So if you're an everydayer that listens to the Locked On Warriors podcast every day, make sure you check out their podcast at some point. Slide into the comments, tell them Chuck sent you, and hit them with a little Warrior.
Dubs and 5.
Stuff.
Dubs and
Chase
5.
was on fire. Chase was on fire, everyone. That was a lot of fun. Put on the yellow shirts, everyone. They're free. See ya.
Night, night.